Hello and welcome to another Cats Whiskers TV podcast. This week we'll be going back to Saturday night and looking back at the game against Belfast. We'll also be looking at the game against Dundee, and we'll be discussing some of the incidents around the league and answering your SCW TV questions with Mr. Paul Balm and the man who loves Mary Poppins so much he sweeps chimneys in his spare time, Mr. Aaron Lord. But first, it's back to Saturday night here in the Bunkers Hill Inn after the game against Belfast. Post-game in the Bunkers Hill Inn after a 4-3 overtime victory. Panthers winning in overtime with a Bruce Graham goal. I'm with Mr. Paul Balm.
Good evening.
Mr. Adam Reddish.
Hello.
And of course, the man of the famous earring, Mr. Aaron Lord.
Good evening, Jono.
So, a real genuine game of two halves. Panthers dominating for the first half of the game, Belfast scoring and dominating the second half. And really, it was only until overtime when Panthers started coming back into it.
Well, yeah, I think we came back into it because, we had a power play in there. A bit of a weird night for me, and yes, we've won, but in one way there's more questions for me than there is answers, because we've just blew away a team that could be considered one of our rivals if we're going to compete this season in the first 20 minutes. And I do say blew away because, they couldn't handle us at all. And yet, it's gone to overtime, and I don't know, for me, I think anybody knew Belfast would come out in that second period. They'd come out at us, they'd be, they started with Keith Lloyd and I think Garside, their third, what you'd consider their third line. You knew that. You knew, surely as the Panther, we knew what to expect from Belfast. And the most frustrating thing for me, Jono, is that what brought us success in the first period, we stopped doing in the second and the third. And that was shooting on Murphy. Yes, we scored after 21 seconds or whatever, but that whole first period, Murphy just, he wasn't in the game. He was rattled. He was offering so many rebounds. It was like a hot potato for him. And that's what brought us success. And I was talking to people in the break and going, well, we need to carry that on. We need to put more pressure on him because he will eventually crack. And we didn't. And that was very disappointing. So, yes, we got the 2 points, but to lose 3 goals at home when you're 3-0 up is very disappointing from my aspect.
Is there something to say about the character of the Panthers, though? Because they looked down and out completely once Belfast got it back to 3-3, and then totally dominated the overtime period and eventually got the goal. Okay, left it late, 23 and a half seconds from time, but it doesn't matter what time it goes in, they all count.
Well, exactly. I mean, it'd be nice if we'd have waited another 2.5 seconds. Then we'd have scored 21 seconds into the game, 21 seconds from the end. But yeah, to an extent, you're right. We did. I mean, okay, we got that power play in overtime, but I can barely remember a time when the puck left our offensive zone. We had as many shots in the third period as we did in overtime, and I think you've got to say it was we showed character to come back like that. There was some great plays, especially the stuff that doesn't always get mentioned. The way it'd been quite easily to let the puck go past us over the blue line, and then we'd have to recycle it, bring it back in again. But we kept it in. We kept the pressure on Belfast, and in the end, I think Bruce Graham changed the tone of this show a fair bit by putting that one through Murphy's 5-0.
Yeah. Adam, were you surprised? Because Panthers were completely and utterly dominating the game, and as soon as Giants got there first, it almost was as if a switch was flicked and they was dominating the game from that point forward. Obviously scoring a goal 12 and a half seconds before the end of the second period really shifted the momentum in their favour, but it was almost as if it was a complete role reversal of the two sides.
It was. I mean, as Paul and Aaron have both said, I mean, it was a very, very strange game. It was totally contrasting between the first half and the second half, but Belfast got that second goal just before the end of the second period, period, and I think the momentum was already starting to shift way towards Belfast by that point, and it seemed like we'd stopped doing all of those basics that any side at home should do. So strong forecheck, we weren't going into the corners, we weren't making Belfast players' lives hard enough. So I think that we probably need to have a look at ourselves and almost say, well, how should we play this game in this situation? Because we could have actually done a lot more, I thought, when we got to 3-0. Why did we take the foot off the gas? I know we've got a game tomorrow. Surely no complacency was creeping in there, because if it was, then it was up to Nielsen and to Rick Strachan to try and get that out of the guys and to make sure that they're going at it 110% every shift. And I just felt that we kind of slackened off a lot during that second period, and obviously Belfast got that goal just before the end of the second period, and I felt that the game was disappearing. And obviously throughout the third period we nearly took the game away totally, because after they got the equaliser there were 3 or 4 really, really gilt-edged opportunities for Belfast to go on and win the game, and we were making defensive cock-up after cock-up, and it was like we were doing our best to try and give them the 2 points. So I'm glad that we managed to see that out and get to overtime, and as Paul said, we basically camped in their zone through overtime, and I suppose you could say that we were the better of the 2 teams in overtime, so we deserved the extra point.
Something I want to throw in there for discussion though is a lot of people thought that we wouldn't get anything out of this game. We've come away with 2 points. Surely, regardless of the performance, regardless in the way we got those 2 points, that has to be a positive, and it continues on the run that we're currently in. We haven't lost in regulation since the home loss to Hull. There seems to be a lot of negativity around the way we're playing at the minute, but we keep dragging out points, we keep dragging out wins. Surely that's got to be a good thing.
You're talking about me, aren't you?
No, I'm not at all. I'm talking generally. I mean, from reading Twitter, reading The Cage, there is an awful lot of negativity, yet we're still dragging out points and dragging out wins.
Look, some people are always going to be negative, some people are always going to be positive. There's not a lot you can do about that, but all the team's got to really do is just ignore, to be honest, both sides of it. Somebody far smarter than me once said you learn more from your detractors than you do from the sycophants, and that's what it said. All the team's got to do is just ignore these things. None of us are daft enough to know, to think that they're not going to pay any attention to it. It's human nature. They've got to ignore these things and just keep grinding it out. And if they keep grinding result after result after result out, then it'll turn some of the negative people around. Not all of them, because some people you'll never change. But they can sort off, frankly.
I mean, here we are. We're now lost 8 league games, only 1 regulation loss, which is equal or better than anyone else in the league. So, that's got to be seen that we're challenging.
Yes, obviously it's positive to, like Paul just said, grind out results when you're not playing very well. I think tonight the thing was, we had such a good first period, and you could say we saw the potential of the Panthers in that first period. But the disappointing thing is, you then have the 2 periods that we had, and I think in that sense that's why people might be a little bit, despondent and a little bit downhearted, and I felt like that. I was buzzing for the game beforehand. After the first period I was buzzing, but the emotions of the game, it takes you through, it's a roller coaster. You go up, you go down, and yes, you have to kind of put it in perspective in the sense of, we might not play great for the 2 periods, the second and the third, but we kind of owned the overtime, we got the win, we got the extra point, so that's positive. So it's a great fact that we're on the run, and I think what we'd like to see is we'd like to see that first period Panthers more often, because we've not really seen that first period Panthers at all this season.
Maybe except the Hamburg game.
I wouldn't even say we saw that. For me, it was a different type of Panthers we saw tonight. We saw, for me, the Panthers that Corey Nielsen said we would see at the start of the season when he recruited it. Quick across the ice, fast, speed, intent, driving to the net, shooting on net. I think the Hamburg game was completely different. That was more about passion, the whole team. So I honestly thought in the first period tonight we saw the Panthers that Corey Nielsen told us that we would see.
I think to add to that, Aaron's right. There were some moves, there were some lovely moves, some lovely plays. That first period, some real quality plays. But you've got to have the backbone as well, because as we saw tonight, not every game is going to be won with fancy passing and fancy plays, and you've got to know, you've got to have a backbone, you've got to know, you've got to have a game plan, you've got to know what to do, and I think we didn't see that until overtime, and that's a slight worry. You shouldn't go 3-0 up and then be hanging on for a point.
Adam, I'll come to you for this question. Bruce Graham obviously got man of the match. Probably understandable because he scored such a brilliant winning goal. But was Nathan Robinson robbed of the man of the match tonight?
Oh, I think so. I think that he deserved it over Bruce Graham. Obviously, Bruce Graham's going to get the plaudits because he scored the game-winning goal. But no, I think Robinson, he was at the heart of everything good that we did. And I thought that Robinson tonight actually, thrived on the big game atmosphere. There was a good crowd in the building. I think the opposition was better than anything that we've probably seen this season down at the NIC. And the best players always play better when they're tested hard. So I think that Robinson did deserve man of the match tonight. He put a real good shift in. He's a really good creative player. He carries the puck a lot. He's always looking for passes. I think sometimes his line mates and other players on the roster sometimes don't quite follow him. They're not quite on the same wavelength. But that'll come in time. The longer Robinson's here, hopefully he does stay a while. And even for the game-winning goal in overtime, he stopped the puck from going out the zone. And he got it back around and got the puck over to Bruce to one time in. So I thought that Robinson, tonight he should have been man of the match. But fair play to Bruce Graham because he needs goals. He's not been lighting the red lamp too much this season. So hopefully that goal will do his confidence a world of good.
The thoughts from Saturday night there. It's Tuesday night. We're back in the Bunkers Hill pub. I'm with Mr. Aaron Lord.
Good evening, Jono.
And Mr. Paul Balm.
Good evening.
So, a couple of other points that I want to bring up with regards to Panthers versus Belfast, and that comes from the press release that came out on Saturday morning on the Panthers website. I felt it was pretty unnecessary, to be honest. I felt it stoked a fire that didn't really need stoking. What do you guys think?
It was embarrassing. I mean, you could argue that it was factually correct, but that's like saying Bournemouth beat Birmingham at the weekend, or it was an 8-goal. That game was an 8-goal thriller. It's just, I thought we claim that we're better than that, and that just proves that at least on that occasion we weren't.
Aaron?
Well, I actually missed it. I didn't read it like I told you guys earlier, so you had to send it me today for me to read. But I've said on many of the shows that we've done that to me that kind of thing is for another club, and that's not really how we or I see the Panthers. So it's just disappointing in one way, I suppose, but it's history, isn't it, really, now? I mean, you see it that once. Does it have any effect on anything? I don't really know, to be honest.
I mean, and at the end of the day, what did they hope to achieve? With ticket sales not going that well, did they think that if they start making comments like that, it'll have people rushing for the ticket office?
I do think it's meant in that kind of way, isn't it? For me, it's meant in a way that's meant to really build up the atmosphere, build up the game. It's a big game, etc. But to be honest, I don't. For the first visit of the Giants, our first game against the Giants, you shouldn't really have to big it up, to be honest.
No, absolutely.
It's pretty big as it is, really. So I think it's meant to build the game up into this big game. But I would say, for me personally, it's not the greatest way to build up a big game.
No, me neither. Another thing I want to bring up, I had a few tweets actually from Belfast fans before the game on Saturday, so Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, just asking, why on earth don't Panthers do a webcast? Now, I know we interviewed Gary Moran a couple of years ago, and he was quite adamant that there wouldn't be a webcast until the NIC was selling out regularly. However, is it something that should perhaps be considered for certain games that we play? Like, I'm thinking more the teams from Scotland, Belfast, for example, where not many fans are going to come over because of the costs of travelling. And Neil, the coach Russell from A View from the Bridge, was tweeting me, and he says there's probably 600-700 Giants fans who would watch a webcast. That's not an inconsiderable amount of revenue that we could be missing out on.
Well, that's what I was saying, when we discussed this last season. It's not... You want to look at not the money that you're losing by people not coming. It's the money you're gaining by people who'll pay £8, whatever, for something that they weren't going to go and watch. I mean, I've had the Edinburgh one before, because there was no way I was going to go to Edinburgh. So that's £8 they've made, not... How much is it to get in there now?
No, I think it's still 15, 16 quid.
Behave. That's not £7 they've lost then. 15 quid?
Yeah.
Good grief.
Aaron, I mean, obviously, I'll come to you from a more professional point of view. I have no idea what the costs are of producing a webcast, so obviously those costs would have to be covered. But I still think, if you've got 600 Belfast fans, even if they're paying a £5, that's 3,000 quid. Is a webcast going to cost that much?
There's several clubs in the Elite League doing it, so it can't obviously cost a lot. It can't be a detrimental thing to them, otherwise they wouldn't do it. This question will always come up until the day, if the day ever comes, that we do start doing webcasts. But what I'll say my bit on is the bit that you went, or the question that you got asked, etc., about certain games. If you're going to do a webcast, you do a webcast for whoever it is. Whether that be Sheffield and Coventry, who are just down the road, or you do it for Edinburgh, and Belfast, because you're basically, if you do it for them, you've got to do it for the others, because yes, I know the travelling is different and stuff, but you're still basically saying to that Sheffield fan or the Coventry fan or the Cardiff fan, no, you've got to come here to watch it.
You see, to an extent I disagree with that. I mean, look at Hull.
Yeah.
Apart from the other Sunday when we went up, that's the best crowd I've seen there, apart from the game just before we won the league, that I've seen of Panthers fans since they brought the webcast in.
And I suppose another way of looking at it is I look at Sheffield. Since they started doing a webcast, the Panthers' support going to Sheffield has reduced considerably, to the point where it's as little as I've seen it the past two games there. It's probably
but
200-300.
The only factor.
No, well, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, I think people are getting bored of facing Sheffield.
But from my point of view, I don't particularly enjoy going to Sheffield, and to spend £8 to watch it in my front room rather than spending £10 on petrol and $16.50 on the ticket. For me it's a considerable saving to watch it at home, whereas normally I would have gone.
Get away with doing that though, are you?
Well, why am I not going to get away with doing it?
Well, if you don't know.
Yeah, but
you've got a wife from Sheffield, remember?
Yeah, and she'd be going anyway because she's got a season ticket. Doesn't mean I have to go.
Tell her that.
I have told her that.
Did you? How many games you missed?
I missed about 3 last season, where I watched the webcast because it was available.
I think if you want to go to an away game, you will go to an away game. Away fans, the majority of away fans, they'll go wherever. You do have certain fans that are away fans as well, and they'll travel to Fife, they'll travel to Cardiff, they'll go to Belfast, they'll go to Sheffield, and then you have other people. I don't think he might, but say Paul. He wouldn't go to everywhere, but he'll get the webcast, like you said. I just think, I just think if you're going to do a webcast, you do a webcast, you offer that service, whoever it's for, because otherwise it just makes you look a little bit, I would say unprofessional, and you go, right, well, this week we're doing a webcast, but no, we're not doing one this week, and we won't have one for another 4 weeks. Oh, but, this one game we'll have a webcast. You either do one or you don't.
That is a good point, that, you then create the argument of, well, you're doing it for them, why aren't you doing it for us?
Which was my first original point. If you do it for Edinburgh, then you've got to do it for Sheffield.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. We will leave that one there. So Sunday night, Panthers travelled up to Dundee to take on the Stars. Stars having a pretty poor start to the season, but very nearly gave us a bloody nose before a comeback in the third period. Saw Panthers win 4-3 in overtime, thanks once again to a Nathan Robinson overtime goal.
There is a pattern forming, isn't there?
Yeah, there is indeed.
You, Nathan Robinson.
Yeah,
you can edit that bit out.
Yeah, I think I will do. Of course, a few milestones from that game. Jonathan Boxall's first goal of the season. Evan Mosey with another goal. And of course, Kowalski coming off halfway through with what seems to be a reoccurrence of the injury he suffered in Hull, replaced by Dan Green, who once again stepped up to the plate and got the win. So I think at 3-1 down for me, I thought, well, we're not going to get anything out of this. So to say I was delighted when the overtime winner went in is a bit of an understatement, as my wife will testify, as I was jumping around the living room when Panthers Hockey Live Story came through.
A big result, very big. It wasn't for great reading on the old Twitter, refresh, especially when it went to overtime. But you tweeted one thing saying that nobody can doubt that this team doesn't have character, and you can't really properly count many games where we've been spectacular or been fantastic. We seem to be grinding out results at the moment, and that is a prime example. Look, Saturday night we've already talked about, but then Sunday night as well, to come back from that, I think it is a fantastic sign. We aren't playing fantastic. You could say, I would say that Robbo's coming into the, like I've said in the last couple, to the player that I think we all thought he would be. Whether that's because he's about to, his agents is sniffing around the DEL or whatever, who cares, to be honest, because while he's producing that, while he's at the Panthers, we benefit.
Absolutely.
I'll still go back to what I said at the start of the season, or what I said at the beginning of the seasons. I think we've got a team. I don't think we've got maybe Robbo aside, we've got fantastic individuals. They're great at what they do, but I think we've got a team. And when you're 3-1 down in Dundee after Saturday night's game, the bus journey, etc., taking all that into account, you need a team to pull you through.
Yeah,
and that's what we got.
Yeah.
So it could end up being a big result.
Yeah, touching on about Boxall getting his first goal, play it and Robinson play, something like Boxall playing with Robinson, that's only going to do him good. He's going to learn from playing with somebody like that. But I was normal. I thought 3-1 down. Well, that's it.
You weren't confident then?
I wasn't confident. No. Well, 2-0 down. 1-0, to be honest. Those are the games. If you're going to get anywhere, you've got to go and you've got to win. They're bottom of the league, but you can't feel sorry for them. You've got to put a team like that away, and we just about did it.
Another thing, I pointed it out quickly at the start, but Evan Mosey getting another goal, and that's his 5th of the season for a defenceman who's been thrust into the forward lines because of circumstances. He's doing brilliantly, and he's scoring some good goals.
Yeah, it's the opposite of what Corey Nielsen normally does, isn't it? Take a forward and make him a defenceman. But he's taking what's the old thing? If you're giving lemons, make lemonade. So he's making the most of. He's probably not playing where he'd like to, but he's getting on with it, and he's doing well.
I think with Mosey as well is he might not be playing where he originally thought he would be playing, and fingers crossed it gets to the point of where we can actually play him where he's supposed to be playing. I think Mosey's come here with a real energy to say to everybody, I deserve to play, and be associated with every other player on the Panthers roster, because so many players, like we've talked about, so many fans, so many people had already written him off before he'd even stepped on the ice. So I think he's had that edge from him from the start of, I'm going to prove I have full belief in my own ability that I can compete at this level. And I think you're seeing that in his energy that he brings, his speed, he's not afraid to finish a check, and the fact that he's popping up on the points board is fantastic, really. And I think he'll just grow and grow, to be honest. Like I said, I think he'll be, and fingers crossed, he's with the Panthers for a couple of years.
And and Nielsen's, he's picked the right person to promote, as it were. Mosey's got that. He's got that sort of attacking nature to his game. It'd be no point playing Brian Schmidt at the front. He still hasn't gotten a point yet this season. But at the end of the day, that's not what he's here to do. The clue's in the name. But Mosey had got. We saw that. I'm not going to talk about that highlight reel. I'll get in trouble again. But he's got that attacking side to his game, and it's showing. And he's for a defenseman, no matter what sort of defenseman, he's got a good pair of hands, especially in front of goal. Some of the ones, we're not talking tap-ins or there's some really good puck handling and shooting.
Was it the first one that he scored on Saturday? I think, looking at the highlight reel, the highlights, it's
he didn't score on Saturday.
I'll be wrong then.
Yeah.
One pair of highlights I saw. He did a nice deke and then top shelf.
I think that was the Edinburgh game.
Yes, it was Edinburgh.
I think. The first one that was with a good goal. Yes.
Thank you. That's what I meant.
Some of the others not so good.
Just quickly going back to this game, so that's now out of 9 Elite League games, Panthers have got points in 8 of them, which, we're still having people, and there were still people tweeting me after what I tweeted on Sunday night saying, oh, we're not good enough, we're not going to win anything, we're screwed when Robinson goes and all this. And I just, hang on a minute, consistency. The thing is, we're probably not playing that well. We're still getting points. That, to me, is a sign of a team. And I think you Aaron, hit the nail on the head by saying it's a team that we've got.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to obviously repeat myself, but I'll gladly take points when we're not playing very well than playing very well and not picking up points.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing for me is there's teams at the top, and you can say look, Bray are there on merit. Sheffield, they seem to be quite strong, but I would say, and look, I don't watch Sheffield's games. I've not seen any of Brayhead's games. I've watched the odd highlights package here and there, but they seem to be playing a lot better than what we do, and they're picking up the points. The thing happens, if the roles were reversed and they weren't playing very well, will they pick up points? So from a positive point of view, from our aspect, what will happen if we do start to play really well?
Yeah.
And like Paul alluded to earlier on, yes, you could say Robinson has pretty much got most of the points in the last couple of games that we've played, and people might go, well, we're screwed when he goes, but let's look at it in the sense of these players, like Paul said, for example, Boxy has played with Robinson for quite a while now, that maybe we will get a lift from just Robinson being here, and maybe he's installed some confidence into our players that we can perform at a decent level. So I think for me it's about, will the other teams pick up points when they're not playing very well, and let's just wait and see for the day that we actually do perform at the level that I honestly do think we can perform at a high level. And if we keep people fit and we get a bit of luck, because you need a little bit of luck in sport, then we will be there and thereabouts. Nobody can complain about our points tally at the moment. And I think, just very quickly, it's the fact that we've played so many games and we've lost games in the CHL that people automatically feel negative. I think that's had a mental effect on people's view on this team.
Yeah, but looking at the forums and looking at Twitter, it seems it's now getting to the point where I think it's unjustified now because the fact Yeah.
They make me smile.
Well, yeah, actually, it's good. It's good. You can have a laugh at them, I suppose. But for me, we are now consistently picking up points, and I think negativity at the moment is unjustified. Maybe if we was in a position like Coventry are suddenly finding themselves in, Dundee are finding themselves in, then yeah, I think we'd have every right to be negative. But at the moment, I think it's a very, very positive position that we find ourselves in.
I'll be happier though when we've actually properly beaten somebody rather than bottom of the league. We're winning games by the odd goal. We're winning games on in overtime. So, yes, it's nice to have, get the points, and I think a lot of the moaning is unjustified, as I think I said on Saturday night. But contenders, I don't know yet.
Okay. Well, I suppose the next few weeks we will find out. Going to look around some of the things that are happening throughout the rest of the Elite League, and two big stories, signings. So first we'll start with Bissonette signing for Cardiff and then pulling out only a few days later because he got an AHL contract. I've got to admit that's a massive shame, because it would have been great to have him back over here.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt it would have been nice, but it was always on the cards, wasn't it, let's be honest. And I think the fact that even in Cardiff's press release Todd Kelman said, look, you might not even make it over here, it tells you everything that you need to know, really. Would have been nice, but hey, he's not really at our level, is he?
I've got to admit, I thought it was a bit unfair. There was a lot of criticism for Cardiff, and a lot of fans probably a bit bitter, a bit jealous, laughing at them because of what happened. But from a bigger picture point of view, it would have been great publicity for the Elite League to have him over here.
Oh, it would, but the fans being like that is what fans are like, aren't they? Especially in this modern day where you can just sit behind a keyboard and say what you like, and you don't have to front up to anybody to say it. But it was unfortunate for Cardiff, the timing, really. I mean, if they'd have held on a couple of days, nobody would ever have known, would they? And we could all just sort of wander through life thinking how much better his Ice Bucket Challenge was than yours. Going back to your original point, well, if I can remember what it was. But signings like that are only ever going to be good for this league. It undoes some of the negative stuff that people think about this league, that it's a goon league, that there's nothing wrong with colouring the inside of your goal black and things. The idea that all publicity is good publicity, it just doesn't wash anymore. This is the things are so much more savvy these days. Stories travel so much further, and that's how you get news. I mean, it's like us being in the CHL, getting ourselves out there. People will say, "Oh, there's hockey in Britain." Never even knew it. It's getting things on the map, and the good stuff will only improve the standing of this league. We've got to make sure, though, that the bad stuff, the embarrassing stuff, and we've seen some of that this week, is kept to a minimum, because these things on the internet is global. It doesn't matter whether you're here in Nottingham or in Nottingham in Canada or America or where, or Bullard in Texas, let's say, home of the Bullard Panthers, and you can see that anywhere, and people's opinions about things are pretty much the same no matter where you are.
Another big signing announced today. Ben O'Connor's deal at the Sheffield Steelers was made permanent. A 3-year deal he signed with the Sheffield Steelers after spending 4 years in Kazakhstan. It's a big signing because he's probably arguably the best British player, having played abroad for so long, shown a bit of ambition, played abroad. He's come back. He's now playing for what is essentially his hometown club. He says it's been a dream for him to play for the Sheffield Steelers. He must have had some bad dreams, that's all I can say. But in all seriousness, it's a very good signing for Sheffield, and it gives them some of the depth that I talked about them not having before the start of the season.
I don't think the fact that he's just because he's gone abroad doesn't automatically make him the best British D-man for me. I think that shows great ambition, don't get me wrong, and you have to applaud him for doing that. Doesn't make him the best British player for me. But I think it's a great signing for Sheffield, because I think that's what they've needed. We've talked about their Brit pack, etc. One signing doesn't make a massive difference to that, because they've still got several older people that are gonna that aren't going to be around for much longer. The 3-year deal aspect of it is very good as well.
What, with elite league contracts? It's been a 3-year deal with a 2-week get-out clause.
Well, yeah, but that's the same as what Stevie Lee's apparently on. So
it's the same what anybody's on.
But you'd think from your own point of view, you'd think he would be there for the 3 years, or at least he's going to give some service back to Sheffield. I think it's very interesting from a financial point of view, from Sheffield, because they openly talked about money problems due to their ice plant issue at the start of the season. Just I would imagine the sponsors chucked a lot of money at it, but fair play to them. At the end of the day, it makes them stronger, not weaker.
Yeah, very true. But of course, there was what O'Connor said earlier in the season when the Elite League rule changes were made, where he sort of said, I'm staying away from there for as long as possible, and then 5 months later he's over here. It's I suppose in a way, and I understand this to a certain point of view, but potential unemployment can change your principles somewhat.
Well, exactly. I mean, he probably did stay away as long as he could. It just wasn't very long. But look, you're right. Principles are a wonderful thing when you've got a wage coming in. When you haven't, then things about the I mean, how many times do we see it in sport, be it ice hockey, football, anything? Oh, I'd never sign for them. No, I've got a nice cushy job with one particular team. All of a sudden, I'm out of work. Oh, I'll go and talk to them. The internet is very easy to mock somebody for saying things like that. But have you got the same opinion you had 3-4 years ago about everything?
Probably not. No.
Exactly.
He didn't potentially have unemployment, though, did he?
Well, he was cut by his team in Kazakhstan. So.
Yeah, but then if you read online, which of course you never believe everything that you do read online, there were teams in Russia that wanted him, that were going to offer him more money. When you say when an unemployment knocks you on the door, surely that was the point of when he took the short-term contract at Sheffield, because it was short-term.
Yeah.
That since then maybe other teams have been after his signature, but he's chose to, come back home, as it would.
Well, that's it. It obviously, if those offers were on the table, then he had to make a decision between Russia or Sheffield. I mean, it's like when Steve Lee. There's a lot of talk about him going to America in the summer, and as soon as he signed for us, he's got no ambition. How do the people saying that know that he's got no ambition? They don't. How does he know that he tried to go out there and tried to get a job in America and couldn't? Or they didn't want to offer him the right money, because we've all got to make a wage. I think what I'm trying to say is it's very easy just to look at one thing out of all of it and make a decision for somebody or why somebody's done something. Nothing in life is about one aspect.
True. I mean, it may be just that after 4 years in Kazakhstan, he might just want some home comforts and people speaking the same language around him in the locker rooms. Very, very good signing for Sheffield, and as Aaron said earlier, makes them very, very stronger. Something that you wanted to bring up, Paul. We was looking at some of the DOPS rulings from the weekend, or non-rulings. So we had Muir of Fife. He was given a 3-game ban that was originally called 2+10 for checking to the head. On Saturday night, we had Chris Frank of Braehead getting a 5+ game for a hit on BT of Edinburgh, which put him in hospital. So, we want to wish him, or from all of us, definitely a very, very speedy recovery, and hope he's back on form soon. that was called 5+ game, and then we had Jordan Fulton of the Five Flies getting a 2-game ban for an incident in the game against Dundee on Saturday, originally called a 2-minute for roughing, with the referee looking directly at it from what we've seen on the Dops video. I think it was something that you mentioned to me about, does this seem to be a divide in the refereeing quality up in Scotland than there is perhaps further down south? We often hear complaints from Scottish fans about the standard of refereeing up there, so
it's a staple. When we do that as Cats Whiskers TV, it's a staple topic of conversation, isn't it? But I think the thing that worries me is the lack of consistency. I mean, I know no two things are the same, but we're talking about 2-game bans for 2-minute penalties, and then we're talking about no ban for a 5+ game. Who's right? I mean, we'll touch on the Frank incident in a minute, but for a 5+ game, and I'm not talking about the Frank incident now. I mean, that's fair enough that sometimes, a 5+ game's right. That's what it's there for. There's no extra ban. But what I don't get is how you get from a 2-minute penalty to a 2-match ban. Which of those is right?
Well, I want to bring up a tweet that Dave Sims put on Saturday, which pretty much agrees with what you said. He basically said officials are becoming idle and not taking tough decisions themselves, thus relying on DOPs. How could the referee in this case award just a minor penalty? Some, not all officials, taking the easy way out, knowing incidents will be reviewed. That official's performance warrants a review.
Well, all official performances should be reviewed anyway. So we're not, it shouldn't just be about the incidents that get reported. There should be somebody reviewing all performances. But it's this thing about, accountability, almost, and referees not wanting to make a big game-changing decision. You look at practically every sport that's got TV reviews in. All of a sudden, nobody wants to be the one that makes the mistake. You look at rugby, there are tries that you look at them the first time and say, yeah, that's a try. Goes to a TV review. Time after time. And it's they just don't see them as, well, we'll let somebody else make the decision. We'll let somebody else get the 8-mail, get the boo in. But we can't do that because we don't know who the DOPs are. But that's it. And I think it's just a symptom of everything's being watched now. I daren't make a decision in case I'm seen to be wrong.
Yeah, I think you could. I think there's a lot of merit to what you say there, but it is. So, Aaron, your opinion
on which part of that?
Well, all of it.
Because there was quite a lot.
There was quite a lot. So, do you think that referees are probably taking the easy way out?
No,
because
I think referees like Darnell, Hicks, Smith, the more experienced refs, shall we say, ref the game.
Yeah.
They fully believe what the decision that they make at the time is right. Maybe some of the other refs, which I would say I've not really seen many, especially in person, have in the back of the mind that DOPs is there as a comfort blanket, if you want, or as a safety net. We've seen this in other sports. They're reluctant to kind of bring in some sort of review or technology because they're scared they're taking it away from the refs. I want the ref on that night to ref the game and make the decision that he fully believes is the right decision. Whether I agree with it or whether looking back on a review or on the highlights, whether it's right or wrong. The question that you have to ask is, and this DOPs, and I fully agree with what Paul's saying, a 2-minute minor penalty then gets taken into a ban for a player, and then a 5+ game doesn't get anything. As a ref, where do you stand? Your head's got to be confused because you've got to maybe you kind of
you're kind of clouding the judgment of that referee, possibly.
Yeah, but I mean, if you take the Fulton incidents in isolation, he called a 2-minute penalty for roughing while looking directly at the incidents. You see on the video, he's looking directly at it, and to be fair, his arm goes straight up for the penalty. But he gives it a 2-minute, and then that's upgraded to 2 games. Fair enough if it's something off the play that the referee doesn't see. I fully accept that. But in this case, he was looking directly at the incident.
Well, look, we've always talked about a shortage of refs in this league as well, and maybe, you know, I said this last season, that refs are only human, you know, so they need to be coached as well, just like players. You know, players are coached on a regular basis. Referees and linesmen need to be coached as well, because there's a lot of new rules that are brought into this league. There's a lot of rules brought into ice hockey worldwide. Is it a genuine mistake? Does that ref even get a chance to explain himself and say, I gave 2 minutes because I thought it was this? The problem is we don't hear that. We see the docs bring out a video and it says this has been upgraded to 2 games or whatever. So we don't hear from the ref. We don't get to know whether he thinks he made a mistake or whether the reason behind that initial call. It's all, it's transparency. It's a.
Surely Dops is the transparency.
Yeah, but it's not transparent though in one way, is it? Because you've got an incident like Chris Frank that everybody says is, should warrant some sort of ban, but they don't give a ban. So how's that transparent? Because you don't know why they've not given a ban.
No, that's actually that is a fair point. That is a fair point.
What I would say is you can't. You've either got to say, right, we will anything that we review, we will say whether it's a ban and give a reason for it, or we will not. We will say it's not a ban and we will give you the reason. You can't go, well, that's a very nasty hit. Why didn't you ban Chris Frank? Because you've got to explain everything then, and maybe they haven't got the capacity to do that. Like Paul says, we don't know who Dops really is, so it's not transparent then, is it? So in that aspect, surely you should have a chairman of Dops, or Dops is this referee and this person, ex-player, just like an F1 race, you know who the stewards are.
There was something on Notch TV that Dops are actually, there's 9 people in Dops and 3 are chosen to look at each different ban, but
it just makes it sound like some sort of secret society, if we don't know who they are. But I think in their defence, it's easier to say why something is a penalty than why it isn't. I mean, I saw Scott Neal, saying this exact same thing on Twitter today, that they should come out and explain it, but obviously it's his player that's been injured.
Yeah.
Obviously he's got a vested interest in it, but but it would be nice to know. I mean, we said exactly the same thing, although Boxall says that was a perfectly clean hit on him against Hull.
Sorry,
Dundee. Yeah, telling me wrong. But to see why that was called, and to give them the same forensic examination in terms of this is why it was a penalty, this is why it isn't.
Just very quickly, I think as fans we shouldn't know everything. Some things we shouldn't be privileged to. What I would say is, from and we take that Chris Frank incident now, the opposition should know why that's not a ban. For me.
No, I think that's fair.
As fans, don't tell us. Fair enough. That's like I say, we shouldn't be privileged to every information within the Elite League. But the coach, the player, and the owner should know why that's not a ban.
Going to look at some of your Ask CW TV questions now. Thanks once again for sending them in to our Twitter account. It's at Whiskers TV if you want to send us a question for us to discuss. So the first one comes from Max Coppinger. He says, do you think it's worth Panthers getting a goalie in the short term for K-Wall to fully recover? Well, yes, is my answer to that one.
Well, do we know how long K-Wall's out for? That's the thing.
We don't, but from my point of view, he's gone off the ice with the same injury in consecutive weeks. So that to me says there's obviously a bigger problem that probably needs a couple of weeks to heal. So I think some sort of backup, something in the wings would be good, and that's no disrespect to Dan Green, who's done brilliantly, but considering the games we've got coming up, I would feel more comfortable with an import netminder. And I'm sorry, Dan, I don't mean anything personal about that. It's just, I just feel more comfortable.
I'd agree. With an injury like that, it needs time to heal. But what I would say about Dan Green, I think it needs to be said, is that all the people who are saying, we shouldn't have played him this, we shouldn't have played him in that, bit of practice did him quite good, really, didn't it, last couple of weekends?
He certainly did, and he's certainly come to the fore, and I think he's often been made a bit of a figure of fun. There's not been a lot of confidence in him, and yet he's really stepped up to the plate these past few weeks, and he's won his games.
Yep, on K-Wall's injury, a groin injury can be quite, from my sporting, point of view, seeing that I play football every Saturday, a groin injury is one of those things that you could possibly play with. You think it's all right, but the problem with the netminder as well is you've got to be so supple, to get across the pipes. It could easily go. The thing for me is, if you're talking about 1 to 2 weeks, I would say no. I don't think we need to go and get somebody. And, I was in Coventry away in that Challenge Cup game when Dan Green started, and I'll happily admit, I thought 2 of the goals that went in, K-Wall would have saved. So you automatically go, well, K-Wall should have played. But, K-Wall and Dan Green are very 2 different leveled, skilled, netminders. 1 to 2 weeks, who are you going to go and get that could come in for 1 to 2 weeks anyway and would be happy to travel in, get the visas, sort everything out? As you've just said, Dan Green's put in some solid performances in the last couple of weeks when called upon. Give him the opportunity now, I would say. And if you're talking 1 to 2 weeks, if you're talking longer term, then I think you have to look at the import, opportunity. But 1 game, 2 games, give him the opportunity.
I suppose nobody can deny that he's certainly not earned it. Okay, next one comes from Tom Middleton, or Tom Middleton Real, as his Twitter account goes. There we go. Where's the unreal one? That's what I want to know. But he says, and I think we've covered this actually earlier in the show, but he says, are people ruling out this Panthers team too early? We've beaten every team bar the Clan at least once, and we'll be 1 point behind Clan should we win our games in hand. Now, the thing I would say here is we've got to win them games in hand first, as I would say for anybody who's got games in hand. Yeah, I mean, I think I've said it earlier in the show. Yeah, I think they are being ruled out far too early, especially considering the way we're playing and picking up points at the moment.
I'd agree, but like I said earlier, I'm still not entirely sure. We're scraping by people. We can't keep doing that forever. So until we improve and start winning games outright regularly, I'm yet to make my mind up.
I think you have to look at the fact, Higgins, we've not really seen him. He was a big coup for us, you could say. I kind of get what Paul is saying. You do want to see us turn over a team and turn over a few teams. I think we've got a team, like I've said, and I agree with you in the sense of it would be better to have the points on the board than the games in hand. Don't get me wrong, but you've still got to be positive in the aspect of while we're not playing well, I still want betters going and getting those points in hand.
Okay. Final question from Kevin Bianco, KevbyB0712 on Twitter. After the Caps 9-4 drubbing at the weekend, would you advocate rethinking their inclusion in the EIHL? you know where they will finish each season. Now, to me, that's controversial, and I think a bit unfair. I think the Caps have every right to be in the Elite League. They're always going to be one of the smaller budget teams unless something changes or there's some investment up there, but I think they're valuable members of the Elite League, and for me, long may it continue.
Until they decide personally that they don't want to be in the Elite League, then why should anybody say that they shouldn't, really? If they're happy being in the situation that they're in, on most seasons. Look, they had a better season last season than what a lot of people would have possibly thought. They've obviously tried to change things around, like we've talked about on previous episodes, in the sense of the type of play that they're trying to play. Look, they've gone on a barren run. There's no getting away from it. The stats don't lie in that aspect. But to say you're going to just go and cut them from the league, that's ridiculous. If you said that in any other sport, you'd be cutting teams right, left, and centre from like football divisions and any other, any kind of sport where you've got a league and somebody's at the bottom. You'd be saying that they shouldn't really be in that league.
Yeah, but I suppose in football you've got promotion and relegation, which sorts that out, which you don't necessarily have in hockey.
Well, you haven't in the Scottish leagues. When you get to like Division 3 in the Scottish league, you finish at the bottom. That's it. I just think it's a bit harsh to say to you are not welcome in this league anymore.
I agree entirely.
If they go, do you know what? It's not worth us being in this. But where are they going to drop down to?
No, that's very, very true.
You potentially, you cut them, you're potentially losing that club altogether.
Paul?
I agree. Well, he's talked for long enough. I thought there's no point me going over it all again. Yeah, they want to be in it, then they're going to be in it. And, it's all right to say, we know where they're going to finish. They're not bottom at the moment. Well, I assume it means bottom. Maybe we're now going to finish mid-table. But
I suppose to quantify what Kevin was saying, he sent another tweet saying that he's based down in London. I have no idea who Kevin supports, but he's obviously wanting a London EIHL franchise that he can go and watch. I think he's probably looking from the aspect that somebody may need to pull out for London to be in there.
No, you need more teams.
Yeah,
if a London team is going to happen, you don't want to cut a team to make a London team happen. You need to be going into the ranges of 12 to 14 teams for a London team really to take off. To say, right, well, Edinburgh, you're out of it now because we've got London team, that's going to do more damage to the Elite League in my eyes than just keeping Edinburgh in.
Okay, looking ahead to the games coming up for the Panthers this weekend. A home game on Saturday night at the NIC against a struggling Coventry Blaze before travelling to the Big Blue Tent on Sunday evening for a game against the Cardiff Devils, minus Paul Bissonette, thankfully. I suppose that would have made it a bit more difficult, but he won't be playing. Starting on Saturday night, Blaze are not playing well at the moment. Mark Lefebvre under a lot of pressure as coach. Some fans calling for his head, seem to be relying very, very heavily on Stewart in the net, not scoring enough goals. It's not looking good for the Blaze at the moment.
Not at the moment, but those are the teams, I think, those are the games you've got to be careful of. You can't be complacent. You can't go into them and think, they're not doing so great at the moment. We'll get through this one, easily. You can't go in thinking that. And sometimes, you get a team that's not doing very well, and all the pressure's piling on. You corner a dog, let's say, and it's going to bite back at you.
Yeah, very true.
They've got players that should be performing a lot better than what they actually are. You look at Tendler. I think I saw on Twitter the other day he scored something like an average of 1.26. It was either goals or points per game when he played for Hull, and I think he's on 0.6 now. So, you're talking about somebody that last season, the Steelers were looking to sign, and I probably would say most clubs in the Elite League would have wanted his signature. So is it the players that just aren't performing? Is it the coach that's a problem? something's obviously, and they are putting a hell of a lot of pressure on Stewart, and thankfully for them, he seems to be doing, a pretty decent job, and you have to think that if he wasn't, then where would they be? But Paul's right. You do, corner a wounded animal, they're going to strike back at you at some point, and what better place to do that from their point of view this Saturday, because there's another period to go, but it looks like they're going to lose tonight. And we've seen in the past Panthers be complacent in games like this, that we go into thinking, right, well, this is an easy 2 points, or this is a 2 point that we're going to pick up. You can't. You need to start like we had against Belfast and put Coventry to bed, because what I would say is, you do that with how Coventry are at the moment, they're not going to come back like Belfast did. I think you could win that game in the first 20 minutes. Yeah, you really could. But if you don't, the longer it goes on, the more nervy it is, the better chance Coventry have.
Sunday night, and the Big Blue Tent in Cardiff against an informed Cardiff Devils who beat the Blaze twice last weekend, and of course coming off a 5-2 victory against the Sheffield Steelers the previous weekend. Cardiff are starting to fire on all cylinders and starting to look a very dangerous side now.
Yeah, you can get your cliche count here. Small rink, team, in form, playing in the ring, that they've been built to do, and that's going to be a tough game. Tough game. I
agree with that, but fingers crossed we'll be going there with more skaters than what we did do last time.
Yes.
And
well, at least we finished with more than we did last time.
Yeah, that's a fair point as well. But that you do have to take that into consideration, and I think we'll do all right. I think don't get me wrong, it will be a tough game, but I think we'll pick some points up there.
Alright, well, we will be covering those games on next week's show. Thanks, guys, for joining me once again for another podcast. Obviously, if you would like to get the podcast as soon as it's released, then please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. You can do so by going to iTunes and just searching for Cats Whiskers TV, and you will find us. Thank you very much for joining us. If you want to get in touch with the show, then please use our Twitter at Cats Whiskers TV. But until next week, don't let a spoonful of sugar let the medicine go down. Goodbye.